Chapter 1. Laney splashed water on her face and dried it off. She hoped she wasn't getting sick, but her stomach had felt funny all morning, like butterflies were flapping around or pancakes were being flipped in her stomach. Now she felt dizzy as well, but she just needed to make it through the next hour, and then she could go home and rest. It was probably silly that she had wanted to walk. After all, she was almost 30, but she hadn't walked for her certificate for cosmetology, and she wanted to hear her name called, shake the dean's hand, and flip her tassel. Besides, Tyler, Aaron, and Nancy had insisted they wanted to come cheer for her as she received her teaching degree. She just hoped whatever was affecting her stomach would calm down. "Hey, it's about to start," her friend, Tia, said, popping her head in the bathroom. Tia was studying to be a high school math teacher, but the two had bonded during the program, and Laney would miss her after they graduated tonight. "Right, be right there." Her mouth still felt funny, though, that coppery, metallic taste that made your mouth produce excess saliva. She usually only felt it before she was about to vomit, but Laney hoped that wasn't what it meant today. Tossing her cookies while on stage held zero appeal. She splashed one more handful of water on her face, patted it dry, took a deep breath, and followed Tia out to where the other graduates were beginning to line up. "Are you okay?" Tia asked. "You look pale." "Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but my stomach doesn't feel right. Maybe I'm just nervous?" Tia's left eyebrow lifted in a quizzical expression. "Girl, you went on a reality dating show and got married on national TV. How could you be nervous walking across a stage?" Tia had a point, but Laney didn't want to accept the fact she might be truly sick. A TV show is a little different. There were cameras, yes, but not hundreds of people staring at us. "All right, graduates, it's time." The voice of the education professor kept Tia from responding. Laney stepped into her place in line and prayed she would make it through the ceremony. Just through the ceremony, God, please. The auditorium was filled with people, and a wave of warmth rolled over Laney as she stepped through the doorway. Or maybe it was oppressive heat. Beads of sweat formulated on her back, and one rolled down her spine. Her mouth began to salivate again. She followed the person in front of her down the aisle into a chair. Sitting didn't stop the craziness in her stomach, but it helped a little, and her dizziness ebbed slightly. The master of ceremonies stepped up to the podium and tapped the mic lightly. "Welcome, friends and graduates. We've worked long and hard, but our time has now come to an end." Though he continued, Laney's brain refused to pay attention. She scanned the crowd, hoping to find Tyler, Aaron, and Nancy. It shouldn't have been too hard, as Nancy would have baby Sarah with her, but Laney saw no sign of a baby or her husband. Perhaps they were too far back. She didn't want to turn in her seat and draw attention to herself. Laney glanced back at the stage, but the MC was still droning on. She turned her wrist to see her watch. Only 10 minutes had passed. How long had they said the ceremony would be again? "Will you stop fidgeting?" Tia whispered at her. Right. Focus. Why was she having trouble focusing? She rarely had trouble focusing. Her stomach churned again. Had she eaten? Maybe her stomach was simply hungry because she skipped lunch. No, she had eaten, but just a salad. She'd been busy today and hadn't had time for much else. Plus, her clothes had been fitting a little snugger lately, so a salad seemed like a good way to drop a few pounds. "Edward Coburn?" Her eyes flicked to the stage. Oh, good. They were calling names. She wished she could just walk off the stage and to her car after getting her diploma, but that would look rude. Could she sneak out using the bathroom as an excuse, though? It wouldn't even be a fake excuse. She felt the need to splash cool water on her face again. Was she having hot flashes? No, she was too young for that. Probably a fever then. Good thing school was out for the summer. "Let's go." "What?" Laney looked over at Tia, who had nudged her in the side. "It's our turn. Come on." She pointed to the left where the rest of the people in the row were standing and filing toward the stage. Laney shot to her feet, eager to catch up with them, but the sudden movement sent the room spinning. She grabbed a hold of a chair back to steady herself. When the room stayed still, she continued toward the stage, but the dizziness remained. "Jeffrey Hackworth?" The man in front of her stepped up the stairs and Laney grabbed the railing. Just a few more minutes. Then she would make a beeline for the bathroom again. She didn't even care if it seemed rude. It would be better than the alternative. Laney Hall? Laney vaguely registered the cheers and clapping as she forced her feet up the steps. Thank goodness there were only 3, but the room began spinning again as soon as she reached the stage. She blinked, trying to focus on where to go. The dean. Yes, he was handing out the diplomas. Her fingers touched the hard black leather bifold, and the world went dark. Tyler's heart stopped beating as he watched Laney crumple on the stage. For a moment, all he could do was stare as the room gasped and then fell silent. Then his heart started again and fueled his adrenaline. He pushed past the people in his row and raced toward the front. Before he was halfway there, others closer to the stage began to act as well. Someone call 911. Is there a doctor in the room? We need a doctor. The voices melded together in the pandemonium of the room. Tyler was unable to place any except his own, which kept repeating, "That's my wife. Let me through," as he struggled to get past people and to the stage. By the time he made it, Laney's eyes were open, though she was still lying down. Her gaze caught his as he leaned over her. "Laney, are you okay? What happened?" "I don't know. I think I might be sick. My stomach has been churning and I felt dizzy before we entered, but I thought I could make it through the ceremony." Her hands patted around at her sides. "Did I get my degree?" Tyler shook his head as he took her hand. Of course that was what she was worried about. Not the dizziness or the fact that she passed out on stage. "I'll make sure you get it," he said. A few minutes later, the paramedics arrived and loaded Laney onto a stretcher, ignoring her protests. "I don't need the hospital," she said. "I just need to lie down and maybe eat a little." "Just let them do their job," Tyler said as he followed them out. Surely he could get a ride back to get the car from Nancy or Aaron later. The ride to the hospital was short, but that didn't lessen his unease. What was wrong with Laney? Was it serious? It wasn't like her to pass out. Fall? Yes, she'd done that quite a few times around him, but that was because she was a bit of a klutz. This was entirely different. The ambulance pulled to a stop in front of the emergency room, and they wheeled Laney inside. "This is Laney Hall, 29 years old, fainted on stage. Vitals are good. Patient complained of nausea and dizziness." "Okay, Laney, I'm Dr. Choi. We're going to take good care of you." Tyler watched anxiously as they wheeled Laney into a room. He knew she was in good hands, but he found it hard to sit in the waiting room and wait for word.